You were supposed to watch her. I watched her. Then answer me this. Why is my daughter's bed empty? Cairn Wolfhart filled the doorway like a verdict, hair wild, knuckles scraped raw, eyes storm bright with something that was not fully human. Juniper Glass sat up in the tangled sheets, clutching the blanket to her chest, as if cloth could shield her from an alpha who had just discovered the one thing the world could use to break him. Lower your voice, Juniper said. You will wake the lodge. Good, Cairn said. Let them wake to the truth. My child is gone. Fenwick appeared behind Cairn, barefoot, shirt half-buttoned, the calm brother who always arrived before blood did. He took one look at Cairn's jaw, at the way his fingers flexed like claws, and he positioned himself with practiced care. Brother, Fenwick said, breathe. Cairn did breathe, but the breath felt like smoke scraping his throat. He stepped into the room, and his senses took over before his mind could. The air held juniper perfume and fear and warm skin. It did not hold the smaller scent he was desperate for. No pine needle hair, no sweet milk breath, no little heartbeat. Tell me where she is, Cairn said. Juniper blinked hard. She was playing. I looked away for a moment. A moment, Cairn repeated, voice dropping into something dangerously gentle. You had one task. One moment is enough for a cub to be taken. One moment is enough for old enemies to laugh in the dark. Juniper lifted her chin, trying to turn terror into anger. Your patrols check the grounds. Your brother guards the borders. Lark cannot simply vanish. Cairn leaned close, close enough that Juniper flinched. He did not touch her, but his presence pressed like weight. Do not lie to me again, he said. Do not make me choose what I become. Juniper's throat moved. I did not lose her in the woods. The room went thin and sharp. Cairn went still, then where? Juniper eyes closed for one heartbeat, then opened, wet and cornered. Near Brambleborough Depot. Fenwick inhaled, a quiet curse without words. Cairn stared as if he had not heard correctly. The depot, the dwarf station, the place that smells like old iron and older spells. Juniper voice cracked. Lark wanted to see the tracks. She said she heard a whistle at night. She said the train was calling her. Cairn rage rose so fast he almost felt relieved, because rage was simple. He lunged, and Fenwick moved with him, catching his shoulder, stopping him a hair before Juniper's skull would have met the wall. Cairn, Fenwick warned, not this, not like this. Cairn shook, muscles locked. He looked at Juniper and remembered why he had chosen her. She looked like a future that would calm the pack. She looked like certainty. He had mistaken beauty for loyalty, softness for kindness, silence for devotion. Now his daughter was missing, and Juniper had waited until the last possible second to tell the truth. Lock her up, Cairn said. Juniper recoiled. You cannot. I can, Cairn said. Put her in the cage. Let her sit with the consequences of her own mouth. Fenwick hesitated, then nodded once, grim. Marin will guard. No one touches her. Cairn did not stay to watch Juniper dragged from the bed and into the hall. He could not bear the sound of chains when his mind was full of a small voice saying Papa, full of tiny fingers gripping his. He turned and strode through the lodge, ordering wolves awake, ordering search parties, ordering silence and speed. Within minutes, he and Fenwick were in the car, engines snarling as they cut through black trees toward Brambleborough. Shifting would have been faster, but the borderlands around the depot were Che-u-je-aya territory, watched by eyes that would love to catch an alpha crossing in beast form. Fenwick drove, hands tight on the wheel. If she heard a whistle, Fenwick said, she might have followed it. Children do not understand gates. Cairn stared into the dark ahead. Lark understands more than she should. Fenwick glanced at him. Vesper says the change comes early. I know what Vesper says, Cairn replied. My gut says someone helped her. They reached the station as dawn thinned the night. Brambleborough Depot crouched in a hollow like a forgotten tooth, brick stained by rain, windows blinded with grime. The air smelled of rust and stone and something colder, like winter trapped in metal. A dwarf watchman stepped from the shadows, beard braided with copper rings. Station is closed, he said. It was never yours, Fenwick answered. It is now, the dwarf said. Dwarf holdings, dwarf rules. Cairn stepped closer. My child came here. The dwarf sniffed, as if tasting the words. Maybe many come, lost ones, runners, the tracks promise things. Where is she? Cairn demanded. The dwarf lifted his chin, eyes flat. The last interworld train will arrive soon. If your cub boarded, she is already beyond your teeth. Train, Cairn echoed, and his stomach tightened like a fist. The whistle came then, thin at first, then clearer, cutting through the fog. Cairn felt the hair rise on his arms. The sound did not belong to this world, but it was traveling through it like a blade. In another world, Briar Ashlake walked fast with her hood up, one sneaker flapping because the sole had split. Every step slapped wet pavement and reminded her that poverty had a voice. The city around her was restless, neon and sirens and shouting, but Briar moved like a shadow, eyes down, shoulders sharp. Hunger was a constant ache. Home was a place she avoided until she could not. She passed the alley behind the grocery, where the dumpsters always leaked sour milk, and she heard a whimper. Small, weak, wrong. Briar stopped, heart banging, and pushed aside a torn bag. Gray fur blinked up at her, eyes too bright for the dirt. The animal tried to stand and failed. Ribs showed. Paws were too big, like it belonged to a future it had not earned. Hey, Briar whispered. Hey, little one. She reached in, expecting teeth. Instead, it leaned into her hand and made a sound that punched straight through her chest. She lifted it and felt how light it was, how close it was to not making it. A collar circled its neck, leather cracked but holding a metal tag. Briar wiped it with her thumb and read the stamped words. Moonfen Hollow, the Wolfhart Pack. The name meant nothing. It sounded like a story someone made up to sell candles and curses. But the tag was cold and real. She tucked the pup under her sweatshirt and kept moving. People looked at her anyway, like she was either trouble or prey. Briar had learned to be both, depending on what kept her alive. Her trailer waited at the edge of a dead park. The door was half open. Music spilled out, sloppy and loud. Briar froze, then stepped in, because fear did not change the fact that she needed a place to sleep. The smell hit first. Liquor, smoke, old grease. Her mother sprawled on the couch, eyes glazed. Pike Rooks leaned on the counter with a grin that never reached his eyes. The dealer boyfriend. The man who always looked at Briar like she was something he wanted to snap. "Well, look who crawled back," Pike said. Briar tightened her hold on the bundle hidden under her hoodie. "Do not talk to me. Your mouth is the only thing on you that still has fight," Pike said. "I like that." Her mother waved a hand. "Bri, do not start. Pike has news." Pike tapped a stack of papers. "I bought this place. Your mom signed. Means you are not welcome anymore." Briar stared. "You cannot buy a trailer we do not own." Pike shrugged. "People sign what I tell them to sign." The pup shifted under Briar's sweatshirt, and the movement betrayed her. Her mother squinted. "What is that?" "Nothing," Briar said too fast. Her mother lurched up, grabbed at Briar hoodie, yanked the pup out. The animal yelped. "No," Briar snapped, hands reaching. Her mother grimaced. "We are not keeping a dog. Pike hates dogs." Pike chuckled. "I hate pests." Her mother tossed the pup toward the open door. It hit the step and cried out in pain. Something in Briar went white hot. "Stop," Briar shouted. Pike's eyes narrowed. "You are shouting at me in my house." Briar scooped the pup up, cradled it tight. She glared at her mother. "You threw it." "It is just an animal," her mother slurred. And Briar saw the woman her mother used to be for a split second before it drowned again. Pike reached for the shotgun propped by the couch, the one that had belonged to Briar's father. His hand settled on it like the weapon was an old friend. "You will leave," Pike said, quiet. Briar did not run. Running would have pleased him. She grabbed her backpack, the one she kept half-packed because some part of her had always known this day would come. Notebook, photo, cash, the few things that still felt like her. Then she looked Pike in the face. "If you point that at me," she said, "you will have to live with it." Pike smiled wider. "I live with everything." Briar walked out anyway, each step steady, because her fear was not going to decide her exit. The air outside was cold and clean compared to the trailer. She hugged the pup to her chest and kept walking until her lungs burned and her eyes stung. She spent her last money at a small veterinary clinic where the lights were too bright, and the receptionist looked at her like she was trouble. The vet examined the animal with tired hands. "It is a female," the vet said, "and it is not a dog. It is a wolf." Briar blinked. "That is impossible." The vet did not smile. "I need to call animal control." "No," Briar said, voice sharp. "It is procedure," the vet insisted, reaching for the phone. Briar saw a cage in her mind, cold and metal, another thing taken from her. She grabbed the pup and backed away. "You cannot do that," the vet said. "Watch me," Briar replied and bolted. She fled through the back hall, shoved open a window in a supply room, climbed out, hit the ground hard, scraped her palm, and kept going. By nightfall, she reached Brambleborough Depot because the name on the tag had hooked into her brain like a thorn. The station should have been abandoned, but lights flickered deep inside. Briar crouched behind a pillar, phone in hand, searching Moonfen Hollow. Nothing, no town, no map, only strange posts about old tracks that did not belong to this world. Sirens wailed nearby. Briar's stomach dropped. Someone had called. Pike, the vet, anyone. She saw uniformed silhouettes at the far entrance. Panic slammed into her ribs. Then she saw the train. It looked antique, iron and brass, windows fogged, no markings. The air around it felt colder, like it carried winter from somewhere else. The doors were open. Briar did not ask why. She climbed aboard with the pup and her backpack, and the moment her feet hit the floor, the carriage lurched. The platform slid away. The police voices became muffled, then distant, then gone. Briar collapsed into an empty compartment, breathing hard. The pup trembled. She pressed her forehead to its fur. "You are going to be okay," she whispered. "I promise." The rocking rhythm should have soothed her. Instead, it felt like a hand closing around her life and steering it somewhere she had not agreed to go. Her eyes closed. Exhaustion won. Morning woke her with a different smell. Pine, cold water, smoke from a fire. Sunlight poured through the window, but the landscape outside was not her city. It was forest, deep and old, the kind of trees that looked like they remembered wars. Briar looked down. A little girl lay curled against her, dark hair messy, cheeks smudged with dirt. A collar circled the girl's neck, the same cracked leather, now too tight against soft skin. Briar's body went rigid. No, no, no. The child blinked up at her and smiled like she already belonged. "Mama," the girl said. Briar's mouth went dry. "I am not." The girl frowned as if Briar had said the sky was green. "You smell like safe. Take it off, please. It hurts." Briar's fingers shook as she touched the collar. The metal tag was still there, impossibly. Moonfen Hollow, the Wolfhart pack. "What is your name?" Briar asked. Lark, the girl replied. Papa is angry. Everyone is scared of Papa. Where is your mother? Briar asked, voice thin. Lark stared, confused. Mama is gone. I needed a mama. The train gave me one. Briar felt sick. She searched the compartment for any sign this was a trick. Cameras, hidden doors. Nothing. Only the steady rumble of wheels and the weight of a child trusting her like it was natural. Briar loosened the collar with trembling fingers until it snapped open. Lark rubbed her neck and sighed like she had been holding her breath for days. Thank you, Mama, Lark said, and leaned closer. Do not call me that, Briar whispered. But the words had no power against the way the child said it, like a claim, like a prayer. The train slowed. Through the window, Briar saw a small station in the forest, lanterns hanging, a sign carved in rough letters. Moonfen Hollow. Lark sat up, eyes bright, home. Briar grabbed her arm. Wait, we need to find someone responsible. We need to call someone. No phones here, Lark said with a strange certainty, like she had learned it the hard way. The doors opened with a hiss. Cold air rushed in. On the platform stood men with the stillness of predators pretending to be people. Among them, a huge ash-colored wolf watched the train, pale eyes fixed and unblinking. Then Briar saw the fight. A tall man with dark hair was slamming a dwarf into the wooden boards, fists moving fast, face twisted with rage. The dwarf shouted, and the man ignored him. Others backed away from the man as if he carried fire. Lark squealed, Papa. She bolted before Briar could catch her. Briar ran after, heart in her throat, and watched the man turn at the sound of Lark's voice. Relief broke through his fury for a second, raw and honest. He dropped the dwarf, scooped Lark up, pressed his face into her hair. His hands trembled. Where were you? He growled. Lark wrapped her arms around his neck. I rode the train. I found Mama. The man's body went rigid. His gaze lifted, found Briar. Briar froze at the carriage step, one foot on the wood, her whole body screaming to run back inside. His eyes were storm gray. His presence hit her like thunder, wild and sharp. Something in her spine went cold. He walked toward her, each step measured, controlled, lethal. Who are you? He demanded. Briar lifted her hands. I do not know what is happening. I found a wolf pup. It was hurt. I tried to help. His nostrils flared. You touched my child. She is not your child, Briar blurted, then regretted it instantly. Lark tugged his hair. Papa, do not scare her. She is Mama. I am not, Briar said, voice cracking. The man reached the step, crowding her space. Briar pressed back into the doorframe, trapped by his heat and the knowledge that nobody here would choose her side. You brought her here, he said. I got on a train to escape the police, Briar said. I woke up with a child in my lap. His hand shot out, seized her phone, and crushed it. Plastic cracked. Screen went dead. "Hey," Briar shouted. "That was my only way to call anyone." "No one calls you back from here," he said. He leaned closer, inhaled near her throat, reading her with senses she did not understand. Briar's skin jumped, not from pleasure, not exactly, but from the intimate danger of being examined like prey. "Hedgeborn," he murmured, and the word carried contempt like a blade. Briar did not know the meaning. She only felt the hate behind it and the old memory of being judged and owned by stronger hands. Her vision narrowed. The world swayed. Darkness rose and took her. When she returned, she was moving, slung over a shoulder like baggage. She thrashed. "Put me down." A voice beside her, calm and dry. "Do not fight. He will take it as permission." Briar twisted her head and saw a man walking next to them, ash-blonde hair, pale eyes, the same as the wolf on the platform. He looked amused and tired at the same time. "Who are you?" Briar rasped. "Fenwick Wolfhart," he said, "and the one carrying you is my brother." "Your brother is dangerous," Briar snapped. Fenwick gave a small shrug. "Yes." Ahead, the man holding her spoke without looking back. "If she harmed Lark, I will bury her." Fenwick sighed. "Cairn, listen to yourself." Cairn grip tightened. "She crossed worlds with my cub." "I did not choose it," Briar gasped. Cairn laughed once, sharp. "No one chooses the trap. They only step on it." They reached a clearing where an iron cage sat in the forest, bars sunk into stone. Briar's stomach turned. "No," she whispered. Cairn tossed her inside. The door slammed shut. "You cannot keep me here," Briar said, gripping the bars. "I can do anything I want on my land," Cairn replied. "You are a stranger who arrived on a cursed train with my child." Fenwick stepped between Cairn and the cage. "Enough. She is terrified." Cairn's eyes stayed cold. "Fear is honest. It tells me what she is." Briar's voice shook with fury. "I am a person." Cairn stared at her like the statement was irrelevant. "I have wolves who will want to punish you for bringing danger here. I have rivals who will use you to cut my throat. You are not safe anywhere. Not even from me." Fenwick turned his head slightly, warning. "Cairn." Cairn's jaw flexed. "Decide if she stays alive, shaman. If she is nothing, she goes back on the tracks. If she is something, I will use that." Then he walked away, leaving Briar with the sound of her own breathing and the forest swallowing the path behind him. Fenwick remained. Briar watched him warily. "Please," she said, "I need to go home." Fenwick's gaze softened, but his voice did not. "There is no easy way back. The weird line does not run like a bus. Dwarves guard it, courts bargain for it. It chooses and it charges." Briar swallowed. "Then why did it take me?" Fenwick studied her. "Maybe you were not the one it wanted." Briar looked toward the trees, terrified by the idea. It wanted Lark. Fenwick did not deny it. He stepped back and began to pull off his shirt. Briar's face heated. "What are you doing?" "Showing you why you must not scream," Fenwick said. "If the pack hears you panic, they come, and some of them do not care what you are." He stripped with blunt speed, as if modesty was a luxury he had discarded long ago. Briar turned her face away, but her fear dragged her attention back anyway. Fenwick's bones moved. It was not a clean transformation. It was flesh surrendering, joints shifting, skin stretching. Briar pressed a hand over her mouth to keep from retching. A wolf stood where the man had been, ash-colored, massive, eyes pale and intelligent. Briar shook. "This cannot be real." The wolf stepped closer. Its mouth did not move, but Briar heard words inside her skull, clear as if spoken beside her ear. "Do not faint again." Briar jerked. "You talked." The wolf tilted its head. "You heard," the voice said. Briar clutched her head. "That is impossible." The wolf stared, and Briar felt a presence press lightly against her mind, like someone testing a locked door. Fenwick shifted back, breath harsh, grabbing his clothes. His eyes were no longer amused. "How did you do that?" he demanded. "I did nothing," Briar whispered. Fenwick's gaze sharpened. "That means you are not ordinary. That means Vesper will care. That means Cairn will not know whether to cage you or kneel to you." Briar barked a humorless laugh. "He will never kneel." Fenwick leaned closer to the bars. "Do not be sure. Wolves kneel to two things: power and what they cannot afford to lose." Later, the shaman came. Vesper Reed moved like smoke, silver hair braided back, eyes that seemed to see under skin. She examined Briar with a calm that made Briar feel even more exposed. "You crossed worlds," Vesper said. "That marks you." Briar forced herself to hold still. "I did not ask for this." "Few do," Vesper replied. "Hold out your hand." Briar obeyed. Vesper traced Briar palm with a cool finger. A pressure bloomed behind Briar eyes, like a door opening in her skull. "You hear them," Vesper murmured. Briar swallowed. Fenwick voice in my head. Vesper nodded once, satisfied. "That is rare." Hedgeborn does not mean worthless. It means unclaimed. It means you do not belong to any court that can demand you. Briar stared. "Then I can leave." Vesper gaze softened. "Not easily, but you can survive, and you can protect the child." At the mention of Lark, Cairn appeared in the doorway, as if the name had summoned him. He looked freshly controlled, hair combed back, coat on, but his eyes were still storm. Vesper turned to him. "The child wants her. And this woman hears the beast. Keep her close, Cairn. If you throw her out, you may throw out the only thing keeping Lark calm." Cairn's jaw tightened. "She is human." Vesper voice stayed gentle and firm. Your child rode the weird line. Your child came back changed. Stop pretending rules matter more than blood. Cairn did not answer. But later, Briar was moved from the cage into the lodge, into a room near the one where Lark slept. The first night Briar showered until her skin stung, scrubbing away the feeling of being grabbed and judged. The bathroom smelled of herbs and clean stone. The luxury made her angry because it felt like bait. When she stepped out wrapped in a towel, Cairn stood in the doorway. Briar flinched. Get out. Cairn did not move. His eyes tracked the line of water along her throat, the way her breath rose and fell. He looked like he wanted to bite, and like he hated himself for wanting. You should not wander, he said. I was in the bathroom, Briar snapped. Cairn stepped closer, close enough that Briar could feel his warmth, the heavy heat of a body built for violence. The air thickened. You ran once, Cairn said. You will run again. Yes, Briar said, chin lifted, because I will not be owned. For a long moment, he stared at her, as if he could not decide whether her defiance disgusted him or drew him like hunger. I could keep you here forever, he murmured. Briar swallowed, voice low. Then you will be exactly what you pretend you are not. Something tightened in his eyes. He stepped back, and the sudden restraint felt more dangerous than a touch. Morning brought humiliation with a softer face. Briar entered the kitchen and found strange devices on the counter, half metal, half carved wood, a kettle that hummed without flame. She touched it, and it pulsed under her fingers, as if the lodge itself had a heartbeat. Lark laughed at her confusion. It is hearthcraft, she said proudly. Briar forced a smile. I am still learning. Juniper appeared like a shadow given perfume, free of the cage now, but not free of consequences. Her eyes landed on Briar and sharpened. So this is what crawled out of the train, Juniper said. Briar stared back. I am a person. Juniper smiled thinly. In this house, you are whatever Cairn decides. Briar felt heat rise in her chest. In my world, people do not lock women in cages. Juniper's laugh was soft and cruel. In your world, you threw away a wolf and pretended it was just an animal. Briar flinched. I did not throw her away. Juniper leaned closer, voice honey over thorns. You are not fit to stand near Lark. You smell like streets and hunger. You will stain her. Cairn entered mid-sentence, and the room changed. Even Juniper posture adjusted, chin lowering a fraction. Cairn looked at Juniper. You are released from the cage. You are not released from your failure. Juniper lifted her chin. I will do what is best for the pack. Cairn's gaze flicked to Briar. She stays. Juniper's eyes widened. Because the child calls her mama. Because I said so, Cairn replied. Briar hated that it warmed something in her. Hated that power sounded like safety when it pointed away from her. Days passed. Briar learned the rhythm of the lodge and the way wolves watched without looking. She spent most of her time with Lark, because Lark insisted, because Lark clung like a vine and Briar could not bring herself to cut it. Briar taught her letters with scraps of paper and charcoal. Lark learned too fast, as if her mind had been waiting for the world to give it words. Sometimes Briar caught Cairn watching through a window or a mirror that looked too old to be ordinary glass. He stood with arms crossed, jaw clenched, as if the sight of them both soothed and tortured him. One afternoon in the garden, Lark chased a butterfly and stumbled. Her body blurred. Briar blinked and saw a wolf cub standing where the child had been, shaking its head like it was confused by its own ears. Briar breath caught. Lark. The cub looked up and made a small sound that was almost laughter. Briar reached out slowly. The cub did not retreat. Briar fingers sank into soft fur. Warm, real. The cub leaned into her touch, trusting. Cairn stood at the edge of the garden, watching. His face stayed hard, but his eyes looked shaken, like he had expected Briar to recoil. Like he had expected her to prove every ugly belief he carried about humans. Briar looked at him. She is just a child. She is a Wolfhart, Cairn said. Children are children everywhere, Briar replied. For a moment, Cairn did not answer. Then he said, quietly maybe. That night, a messenger arrived with a ribbon of red cloth tied around his wrist. He bowed to Cairn and spoke loud enough for the lodge to hear. Garrick Redbriar demands payment, the messenger said. You spilled Redbriar blood at the border. You will answer. Cairn's expression went to stone. Tell Garrick he can come collect from my teeth. Fenwick stepped forward. Cairn, speak first, bite later. Cairn did not look at him. I will go, I will talk, and if Garrick wants war, he will have it. Briar listened, chest tight, because she finally understood she was not only a prisoner. She was a spark. Her arrival was a match tossed into dry brush, and this pack was ready to burn. Cairn left within the hour, blade at his belt, coat lined with fur. Lark clung to his leg, whining. I will come back, Cairn told her. Lark looked up with fierce hope. Bring Mama too. Cairn jaw flexed. Fenwick will guard her. Fenwick gave a mocking bow. I will protect your precious prisoner. Cairn shot him a warning glance, then turned to Briar. Do not test the guards. Briar lifted her chin. I will test everything until I find a way out. Cairn stepped closer, voice lowered, almost intimate in its threat. If you try to cross the border alone, Redbriar will not spare you. Briar met his gaze. You do not care if I live. Cairn's eyes flickered. You do not know what I care about. Then he was gone, and the lodge felt colder without his force filling it. Fenwick found Briar later by a window, staring at the forest like it might open and swallow her back to her world. He leaned against the frame, casual, but his eyes were sharp. "You hate him," Fenwick said. Briar exhaled. "I fear him." "Fear is the first thread," Fenwick replied. "Sometimes it turns into something else." "Do not," Briar snapped. Fenwick lifted his hands. "Fine, you want truth." Cairn became hard for a reason. Briar hesitated. "Then tell me." Fenwick's gaze went distant. "We had a homeland once. Allies, halls of stone. Then the courts shifted. Dwarves took the tracks. Humans hunted our kind. We lost children. We lost mates. Cairn learned that mercy gets you buried." Briar swallowed. "And you?" Fenwick shrugged. "I learned to smile while I bleed." The honesty sat heavy between them. It did not excuse Cairn cruelty, but it made it less simple, and that was somehow worse. That evening Juniper approached Briar in the corridor, holding a small cup. Her smile was careful, too careful. "Peace," Juniper said, "for the sake of the child." Briar did not take it. "What is that?" "Tea," Juniper replied. "A calming blend. You look tired." Briar stared at her. "You lied about Lark. You watched Cairn cage me. You do not get to offer me tea." Juniper eyes flashed. "I did what I had to." Small footsteps sounded, quick and soft. Lark appeared, hair damp, eyes sharp. She looked at the cup, then at Juniper, and a low growl rumbled in her throat, wrong in such a small body. Juniper stiffened. "Control your child." Lark stepped in front of Briar like a tiny guard. "No." Juniper tried to move past. Lark slapped the cup. It fell. The liquid spread across the floor. The smell rose sharp and bitter, not tea. Juniper's face went pale. Briar stared at the puddle. What was in it? Juniper backed away, eyes darting. "You are making enemies human." Briar's voice went cold. "You tried to hurt me." Juniper's mouth twisted. "I tried to protect my future." She fled before Briar could grab her. Briar's knees went weak. Lark hugged her leg. "You saved me," Briar whispered. Lark nodded like it was obvious. "Mama needs to stay." Hours later, the lodge doors slammed open. Voices rose like an alarm. Briar ran to the main hall and saw Cairn being hauled inside by two men, blood on his coat, face gray with pain. Fenwick lunged forward. "Brother." Cairn tried to stand on his own and nearly fell. Briar moved before she could think. She caught his arm and felt the heat of him, the tremor of a man forcing his body to obey. "Do not touch me," Cairn rasped. Briar ignored him. "Sit down." He glared at her with pure alpha fury, then his knees buckled. They laid him on a table. Briar pulled back his coat and saw the cut along his ribs, deep enough to make her stomach flip. "Get cloth," Briar said. "Boiled water now." Marin hesitated, then obeyed, startled by the human giving orders like she belonged. Briar pressed cloth to the wound, hands shaking, and Cairn hissed through clenched teeth. She leaned close, focused, because fear would not help and panic would kill him. "Do not fall asleep," Briar said. "Stay with me." Cairn's eyes fluttered. His voice came out rough, half delirious. "Hedgeborn." Briar's jaw tightened. "My name is Briar." His gaze snapped to her face, as if the name was a key turning in a lock. Then, in a voice scraped raw by pain, he said, "Briar." The room went silent. Briar froze with her hands on him, cloth pressed to his skin, because something in her chest cracked open. Not love, not trust, but the first dangerous possibility of being seen. A servant burst into the hall, breathless, eyes wide. Vesper, the servant, blurted, "It is Juniper. She is bleeding. She says she is with child." Cairn tried to lift his head. "What?" Briar felt the world tilt like the train lurching onto a track she could not see. Lark's small hand found Briar's wrist and gripped tight. Cairn's eyes locked on Briar, fierce even through weakness, as if she was the only anchor left in the room. "Do not leave," he whispered. "She is with child," the servant repeated, voice shaking. "She is bleeding and she says it is yours." "No," Cairn said, and the word cracked like a whip. "Not mine." Briar felt Lark fingers clamp around her wrist, tight enough to hurt, and the child stared at Cairn as if she could see the truth under his skin. Vesper moved fast, hands already slicked with herbs, gaze sharp as a blade. "Bring Juniper here. Now. And keep her alive, because if she dies before she speaks, we will never know which lie killed her." They carried Juniper into the hall on a pallet, face pale, lips stained with blood, eyes bright with panic and stubborn pride. She clutched her abdomen, and when she saw Cairn on the table she flinched like the sight of his wound was a punishment meant for her. "It is his," Juniper said. "Say it, Cairn, say it in front of them. Say you marked me and forgot." Cairn tried to rise. Pain cut him down. Fenwick pushed him back, a hard palm to his shoulder. "Stay," Fenwick growled. "If you stand, you tear yourself open." Juniper laughed weakly. "Look at him. He would rather bleed out than admit he touched me." Briar did not mean to speak, but the words ripped out anyway. "If it is his, why are you bleeding like someone cut you with a hidden knife?" Juniper eyes snapped to Briar, full of venom. "Because your filthy presence poisons this lodge." Vesper pressed 2 fingers to Juniper's wrist, then to her throat, then to the hollow under her ear where scent and magic both lived. Her face went still, the way a storm goes still right before it breaks. "There is life," Vesper said. "A child, yes, but the father is not certain." Juniper went rigid. "You cannot say that." Vesper turned her head slightly, eyes on Cairn. "She can. And I will say more. This pregnancy reeks of outside hands." Marin shifted uncomfortably. "Outside as in Redbriar." Juniper hissed, "Do not speak that name in my mouth." Cairn eyes burned. "Speak it," he rasped. "If you have been crawling to Garrick, I will drag the truth out of your throat with my teeth." Juniper trembled, rage and fear twisted together. "I did what I had to. I kept the pack from starving. I kept you from losing power. You would have thanked me if you were capable of gratitude." Fenwick stepped forward, voice cold. "You lost a cub. You tried to poison the woman the cub clings to. And now you bleed and claim a child like it is a shield." Juniper turned her face away, as if refusing to grant him the dignity of a reply. Vesper straightened. "Juniper will be guarded until I know what is happening inside her. Cairn will be treated before his ribs open again. And Briar," she said, eyes sliding to Briar like a weight, "you will not leave this lodge until we know why the Weedline answered you." Briar mouth went dry. "I did not ask it to." Vesper voice stayed gentle. "That is never the point." Cairn lifted his head, gaze pinning Briar. "Do not run," he said, rough and low. "Not now." Briar stared back, anger and something hotter tangling inside her. "You do not get to tell me what to do," she whispered. Cairn lips parted, then closed again, as if he had almost said something that would have exposed him. Fenwick watched the exchange with narrowed eyes, like he was counting the beats where a pack could change its fate. They treated Cairn in the main hall because he would not be carried to a bed, and because the pack needed to see their alpha still breathing. Briar stayed beside the table because her hands were steady, and because Lark refused to let go of her. "You hate pain," Briar murmured as she pressed clean cloth to the wound. "I do not hate it," Cairn rasped. "I hate who sees me in it." Briar looked up. "Who do you think is watching you right now?" Cairn eyes flicked toward the stairs where wolves lingered, then to Briar again, and something raw passed behind his gaze. "You should not be here," he said. "Not in this world, not in my house, not near my child." "And yet I am," Briar said, voice thin. "And your child calls me mama like it is a spell." Lark lifted her chin. "It is a spell," she announced. Fenwick made a soft sound that might have been laughter, except it held no humor. After the hall quieted, after Cairn could sit without his breath catching, Vesper pulled Fenwick aside and spoke low. Briar caught fragments anyway, because the lodge was full of whispers, and because her mind felt stretched open, hearing things she should not. "Hedgeborn blood," Vesper murmured, "old pathways. The Weedline listens to her." "And Cairn," Fenwick replied, "will try to turn her into a chain." "Or a shield," Vesper said. "He will not know the difference." Briar slept that night in the room beside Lark, and she slept with one eye open, because the lodge creaked like a living thing, and because Juniper still breathed somewhere behind locked doors. Near midnight, Briar woke to a presence in the doorway. She sat up fast, heart slamming. Cairn stood there in the dark, shirt loose, bandages visible at his ribs, his face shadowed. He did not enter. He simply watched her like the wolf in him was memorizing her shape. "What do you want?" Briar whispered. "To see if you were still here," Cairn said. Briar's throat tightened. "Why?" "Because if you vanish, Lark breaks," he answered, too honest for a man who tried to live on control. "And if she breaks, my pack breaks." Briar stared at him. "I am a person, not a piece of your structure." Cairn's gaze lowered to her mouth, then lifted again, as if he had caught himself. "I know." "Do you?" Briar asked. "Or do you only know what you need from me?" Cairn's jaw flexed. "I need you alive." "That is not the same as needing me," Briar said. For a moment he looked like he might step forward. His hands curled, then loosened. He backed away as if closeness would make him weak. "Sleep," he said, and left. In the morning, Vesper summoned Briar to the hearth with Merrin and Fenwick present. And Cairn, sitting stiffly at the far end of the room, like an injured king, refusing a throne. "You cannot go back today," Vesper said. "But you will need clothes, shoes, and something that makes you less vulnerable when you walk this land." Briar stared. "Vulnerable? You mean I look like prey?" Fenwick smiled faintly. "Yes, also like someone who might be stolen." Cairn's voice cut in flat. "No one steals what is mine." Briar heat flared. "I am not yours." Cairn's eyes flashed. In this world, that sentence means nothing if a stronger man decides it does. Briar felt the old memory of Pike, the gun, the trailer, the way strength had always tried to define her. She forced her voice steady. "Then teach me how not to be taken." A silence fell. Cairn looked at her like he had not expected her to ask for power instead of mercy. "Fine," he said. "We go to the city. Today, you will choose what you need. You will learn how eyes follow. You will learn how to stand beside a wolf without flinching." Fenwick lifted a brow. "That sounds almost like a date." Cairn's gaze turned lethal. "Speak again, and I will leave you to deal with Juniper." Fenwick leaned back, hands up. "I am silent, almost." They traveled by car through forest roads and stone bridges, and Briar watched the world change from deep woods into a hard-edged town where magic hid under ironwork and old brick. Wolves moved through the streets like men, but Briar saw the way they watched, the way their shoulders angled, the way they marked space. Cairn walked beside her, not touching her at first, but close enough that his heat brushed her arm whenever the crowd tightened. People stared. Some looked curious. Some looked afraid. Some looked angry, as if a human at an alpha side was a provocation. A woman in a shop doorway spat on the ground as Briar passed. "Hedgeborn," she muttered. Briar stopped, adrenaline rising. "Cairn, what does that even mean?" Cairn did not look away from the woman. "It means you do not belong to a court that can protect you. It means you are unclaimed." Briar felt her stomach turn. and you plan to claim me." Cairn turned to her, gaze hard. "I plan to keep you alive." "That is not an answer," Briar said. Cairn stepped closer, close enough that Briar had to tilt her head to meet his eyes. "In this town," he said quietly, "men will test you because you are strange. If they think you are alone, they will hurt you. If they think you are mine, they will hesitate." Briar whispered, "You are using me as a warning sign." Cairn's voice softened just a fraction, "And I am offering you a shield." Briar laughed once, bitter. "Shields still get held." Cairn's gaze dropped to her mouth again, fast, like hunger flickering. His hand slid to her waist in public, not gentle, not rough, simply certain. The touch sent a shock through Briar that made her hate her own body for reacting. Cairn leaned in, lips near her ear. "Breathe," he murmured. "Stand. Do not show them your throat." Briar tried to steady herself. "I hate you." Cairn answered without moving his mouth. "Good. Hate keeps you awake." He bought clothes without blinking at price, boots that fit, and a coat that made her look less like she had crawled out of a storm. He did not ask if she wanted him to pay. He simply decided, and Briar fought the urge to throw everything back at him just to prove she could. On the way out, a dwarf in a brass-trimmed vest watched them from a corner, eyes narrowed in recognition. Briar felt something cold settle in her chest, like being noticed by the wrong kind of fate. The dwarf spoke to Cairn in a low voice. "The tracks whisper again, Wolfhart. Your cub rode them. Your human stinks of them." Cairn's shoulders went still. "Say what you want." The dwarf smiled thinly. "Dwarves say nothing for free." Briar felt Cairn's hand tighten at her waist, and she realized the dwarf was not talking about money. He was talking about leverage. They returned to the lodge to find tension waiting at the door like a guard. A messenger stood in the hall, head bowed, hands blood-stained, as if he had run through thorns. "Garrick Redbriar offers alliance," the messenger said. "He offers peace if Cairn Wolfhart sends him the human woman." Briar felt her stomach drop. Cairn's voice went quiet, and every wolf in the hall leaned in because quiet from an alpha was more dangerous than a roar. "Tell Garrick he may choke on the offer." The messenger swallowed. He said the human is a key. He said she does not belong in Wolfhart hands. He said if you refuse, he will come for her and for your cub and for everything you love. Lark appeared on the stairs, tiny face pale. "Papa." Cairn looked up at his daughter, and the hardness in him shifted, becoming something sharper, more focused. "No one touches you," he said. Briar heard herself speak before she chose it. "This is because of me." Fenwick turned his head toward her. "It is because Garrick smells opportunity. You are only the shape of it." Cairn looked at Briar, and for once his gaze held no contempt, only grim decision. "You stay inside the lodge walls. Marin doubles the guard. Fenwick, you do not leave her." Fenwick saluted lazily. "I will breathe near her constantly." Cairn eyes narrowed. "I will remove your tongue." Briar should have laughed. Instead, she felt sick, because for the first time she understood that Cairn was not only controlling. He was afraid, and his fear could bring war. That night, Juniper screamed. The sound tore through the lodge and pulled everyone to the corridor where she was locked under guard. Briar arrived with Lark pressed close to her side and saw Juniper on the floor, hair loose, hands slick with blood, eyes wild. "It is coming too soon," Juniper sobbed. "Vesper, it is tearing me." Vesper knelt, calm and ruthless. "Hold her down. Do not let her thrash." Juniper eyes locked on Briar. "This is your fault." Briar flinched, and Cairn, who had arrived behind her, stepped forward like a wall. "Do not speak to her," Cairn growled. Juniper laughed through tears. "You defend her like she is already your mate." Briar felt heat flare. "I am not." Cairn's voice went low. "You will not speak that word in my house while you carry a child that may not be mine." Juniper's gaze flickered, and in that flicker Briar saw it. A crack, fear. Vesper pressed a hand to Juniper's belly, eyes half closing, listening to something under skin. Her expression tightened. "This child is bound with borrowed magic," Vesper said quietly. "Someone has threaded a ward into her blood." Fenwick cursed under his breath. "Redbriar." Juniper shook her head too fast. "No, no, you are lying." Vesper gaze snapped to her. "I do not lie, you do." Juniper went silent, chest heaving. For a moment, Briar thought she might confess. Instead, Juniper turned her face away and said nothing. The stubbornness of a woman who had bet everything on secrets. In the days that followed, Cairn began to court Briar as if he did not know he was doing it. A carved knife left on her table. A fur-lined blanket folded at the end of her bed. Fresh fruit from the town that she knew he had bought, because he had asked a shopkeeper what humans ate when they were sad. Briar told herself it meant nothing. Gifts from a wolf could be a leash. But then Cairn would pass her in a corridor, pause for half a heartbeat as if pulled, and his gaze would land on her mouth like he was imagining something he refused to do. That look made Briar's skin tighten, made her anger feel thin, made her remember the hand at her waist in the city, and the way her body had responded, as if safety and danger could be the same thing. Fenwick noticed. Of course he noticed. He noticed everything. One evening he found Briar outside the lodge, wrapped in her coat, staring at the moon through bare branches. "He will break," Fenwick said, coming to stand beside her. Briar did not look at him. "He does not break, he bites." Fenwick's voice softened. "Everything breaks, even alphas, especially alphas." Briar swallowed. "Then why do you stay loyal to him?" Fenwick stared up at the sky. "Because I saw him before he became this, and because if he falls, the pack falls. Lark falls. Briar throat tightened at the child name. Fenwick glanced sideways. You already love her. Briar whispered, she is a child who woke up calling me mama. How could I not? Fenwick nodded once, then leaned closer, deliberately too close, voice low. Be careful. Cairn will hear that and he will decide it gives him the right to pull you into his chest and never let go. Briar turned sharply. You are enjoying this. Fenwick smiled, a little. Before Briar could reply, the air shifted. She felt it first, the way the forest held its breath. Cairn stood in the doorway behind them, bandages under his shirt, eyes dark. Fenwick lifted a brow. Brother. Cairn gaze stayed on Fenwick, then slid to Briar. Inside, he ordered. Briar bristled, I am not a dog. Cairn took one step forward, voice rough. Inside, now. Fenwick looked between them, then stepped back. I will go make myself scarce before you start biting furniture. Briar did not move. She held Cairn gaze. You cannot keep ordering me like that. Cairn jaw flexed. I can and I will until you stop trying to die for pride. Briar stepped closer, heart hammering. Pride is all I have left. Cairn looked down at her, and the air between them tightened, thick as storm clouds. No, he said quietly, you have Lark, you have breath. You have a mind that hears wolves and still does not beg. Briar voice shook, then let me leave. Cairn eyes flashed, I cannot. You will not, Briar said. Cairn breathed out hard. If you leave the lodge alone, Redbriar will take you. He will use you. He will drag the weird line out of your veins and bleed you dry for it. Briar swallowed, so you keep me here for my own good. Cairn stepped closer. I keep you here because if you are gone, Lark will think the world always takes her mothers away. I keep you here because my wolf has decided you matter. Briar whispered, your wolf is not you. Cairn gaze dropped to her mouth. Sometimes, he said, my wolf is the only honest part of me. The silence stretched until Briar could hear her own pulse. Then Cairn did what he had been refusing to do. He grabbed her, not brutal, not gentle, just sudden and inevitable. And he kissed her like a man starving, like a man who had been denying hunger until denial turned into pain. Briar froze for one heartbeat. Then heat surged through her, hot and furious and unwanted, and she kissed him back because her body had always known danger and still craved touch that did not come with a gun. Cairn's hand slid to the back of her neck, not forcing, anchoring. He pulled back just enough to breathe against her lips. Tell me to stop, he murmured. Briar voice cracked, I should. Cairn eyes burned, do it. Briar shoved him hard, palms against his chest, and he stumbled back a step, more surprised than hurt. No, Briar hissed. You do not get to take me because you are afraid and lonely. I will not be your second female. I will not be a consolation prize while Juniper bleeds and claims your name. Cairn face went stone. I have not touched Juniper in a long time. Then why is she pregnant? Briar snapped. Cairn voice went low and deadly. That is the question that will end a war. Briar turned away, shaking. She hated the ache in her mouth where his kiss had been. She hated the way her skin remembered his heat. She hated that part of her wanted to run back into his arms and let his strength pretend to be safety. Instead, she walked to Lark's room and lay down beside the child. And Lark curled into her, without waking, small hand gripping Briar's sleeve like a promise. The next morning brought news that made the lodge go still. A scout returned with blood on his boots. Red Briar men are gathering at the border, he said. Garrick is building a court of teeth. Cairn called the pack to the hall and spoke without shouting, because his control was a weapon. We do not hand over women, Cairn said. We do not hand over cubs. If Garrick comes, he meets me. Not Briar, not Lark. Murmurs rose, fear and loyalty tangled. Briar stood at the back with Lark and felt every gaze brush her like a hand. Some wolves looked at her with curiosity, some with blame, some with hunger, not of the body, but of what she represented. A key, a spark, a story. After the meeting, Briar cornered Vesper by the hearth. Tell me the truth, Briar whispered. Am I really the reason this is happening? Vesper studied her. Garrick was always hungry. You are simply a scent he cannot ignore. Briar swallowed. And if I leave, if I give myself to him, does it stop? Vesper eyes sharpened. That is not how hunger works. Briar voice shook, but it buys time. Vesper went still. You are thinking like a sacrifice. Briar forced herself to meet the shaman gaze. I grew up learning how to trade myself for survival. I just never thought I would do it for wolves. Vesper voice softened, be careful. Wolves do not survive sacrifices, they avenge them. That night, Briar made her decision. She waited until the lodge slept, until the guards changed, until Fenwick was distracted by a distant howl. She left a note for Lark, simple words her throat could barely form, telling her she was loved, telling her she was brave, telling her she was not being abandoned. Then Briar pulled on her boots and slipped into the woods. The forest swallowed her fast. Moonlight cut through branches. Every shadow looked like teeth. Briar kept moving, breathing through fear, because fear was familiar and she had survived it before. She reached the border stones at dawn and saw the figures waiting as if they had known she would come. Garrick Redbriar stepped forward, tall, handsome in a sharp, cruel way, hair dark as wet bark, eyes bright with predatory delight. His men fanned out behind him. There she is, Garrick said softly, the little key that fell out of the train. Briar lifted her chin. Let the Wolfhart pack alone. Garrick smiled. You speak like you can bargain. Briar voice went thin. I am here. You do not need to come for them. Garrick circled her slowly, scenting the air. "You smell of my enemy," he murmured. "You smell of his hands." Briar flinched, furious at herself for it. Garrick stopped in front of her. "Come," he said, "we will be polite. We will be civilized. We will talk in my keep, where walls do not listen for cairn footsteps." Briar did not want to move. She forced her feet forward anyway, because turning back would only bring war faster. They took her to Red Briar Keep, a fortress of dark stone and iron gates. Inside, the air smelled of smoke and old blood and sweet rot. Briar kept her face blank and her breathing steady, because she knew what predators enjoyed. They locked her in a room with a window too high to reach. Hours passed. Then the door opened and Juniper stepped inside. Briar went cold. "You." Juniper closed the door behind her, eyes gleaming with triumph and fear. "You made it easy," she said. Briar stared. "You are here willingly." Juniper laughed softly. "Willingly. That word belongs to people with choices." Briar stepped back. "The baby, it is his." Juniper gaze flickered toward her abdomen, where the swell was beginning to show. "It is not Cairn," Juniper said. "I told you that truth without speaking it. I needed you jealous. I needed you reckless." Briar throat tightened. "Why?" Juniper eyes filled with something that looked like grief, then twisted into bitterness. "Because I gave everything to that pack and they never loved me. Because Cairn wanted a pretty future, not a woman with ambition. Because Garrick promised me a crown." Briar whispered, "He will discard you." Juniper's voice went sharp. "He will not until I give him what he wants." Briar stared. "What does he want, me?" Juniper's smile returned, thin and cruel. "Not your body, your blood, your hearing. The way the Weedline listened to you. He thinks you are a door." Briar felt bile rise. "And you helped him." Juniper stepped closer. "I did not lose Lark at the depot by accident," she said. "I brought her there because the train was waking, because the dwarves were watching, because Garrick needed a cub to lure an alpha into desperation." Briar shook. "You used a child." Juniper eyes flashed. "This world uses everything. At least I chose to use it first." A horn sounded outside, low and distant. Briar felt it in her bones, like the forest itself had begun to run. Juniper went still. "He is coming," she whispered, and fear finally cracked her mask. "Cairn." Briar heart slammed. "No, he will die." Juniper backed away toward the door. "I will not die with you," she hissed and fled. The keep shook with the first impact. Wolves howled and men shouted, and the stone walls seemed to tremble under the weight of an alpha rage unleashed. Briar ran to the small window and saw chaos below. Dark shapes leaping, steel flashing, red cloth tearing in the wind. Fenwick, ash-colored wolf, and then man again, moving like a blade through bodies. Marin with blood on his hands. Wolfhart wolves pouring through the gate like a flood. Then she saw Cairn. He was in beast form at first, huge and black as night, eyes burning with moonlight. He tore through red briar guards like they were paper. When he shifted back to human, he did not bother with clothes, only with speed, blood streaking his skin like war paint, bandages at his ribs already soaked through again. He is going to tear himself open, Briar whispered. A voice behind her, amused and cold. He already has. Briar spun. Garrick stood in the doorway, a blade in his hand, smile sharp. He dismissed the battle outside like it was weather. You came to me, he said. That was either brave or stupid. Briar forced her voice steady. Let me go. Garrick stepped closer. Why would I? You are exactly what I need. He grabbed her arm and dragged her into the corridor, pulling her toward a chamber deeper in the keep. Briar fought, kicking, twisting. Garrick only tightened his grip. In the chamber, symbols were carved into the stone floor, old lines that made Briar head ache when she looked at them. Candles burned with green flame. A bowl sat in the center, dark liquid inside that smelled like pennies and smoke. Briar swallowed. This is a ritual. Garrick eyes gleamed. You are learning. Good. He shoved her to her knees by the bowl and pressed the blade to her throat, just enough to draw a sting of pain. Briar froze, because she had learned long ago that some movements got you killed. Listen, Garrick murmured. Hear for me. Call the weird line. I want the train. I want the tracks. I want the door that took you. Briar breath shook. I cannot call it. Garrick smiled. You will. The chamber door slammed open behind him. Cairn stepped in. He was breathing hard, chest heaving, eyes wild, blood dripping from his knuckles. For a heartbeat, he looked like a monster from a story meant to warn children not to wander. Then his gaze landed on Briar, and something in him went human, raw and trembling. Let her go, Cairn said, voice low. Garrick laughed. Look at you. The great alpha, bleeding and begging. Cairn took one step forward. Garrick pressed the blade harder. One more step, and she opens like fruit. Cairn stopped so fast his body shook with it. His hands curled, then loosened. Briar felt Garrick breath on her ear. He will choose, Garrick whispered. He will choose you or his pride. Briar turned her head just enough to look up at Cairn. His eyes were fixed on her throat, on the blade, and the pain in his face was not only fear. It was rage at himself for having something to lose. Briar made her choice in the same instant. She bit Garrick's hand. Teeth sank into flesh. Garrick swore and jerked back. The blade lifted away from Briar's throat for one heartbeat. That was all Cairn needed. He moved like wrath given shape, grabbing Garrick by the throat, slamming him into the stone, and when Garrick tried to recover, Cairn's teeth flashed. Briar saw the moment Garrick's smile died. She saw the shock. then the red. Cairn tore Garrick throat out. The room went silent, except for Cairn breathing and Briar own shaking. Cairn turned to Briar, blood on his mouth, eyes too bright. He dropped to his knees in front of her and cupped her face with hands that trembled. "Are you hurt?" he rasped. Briar voice broke. "No, Cairn, you are bleeding." Cairn looked down at his ribs, then back at her, as if the wound did not matter. He pulled her into his chest, fierce and careful at once, and Briar felt his heart hammering like it was trying to outrun death. Then the symbols on the floor flared. Briar jerked, "Cairn." A wave of dark heat slammed through the chamber, a ward detonating like a trap finally sprung. The air tasted of ash. Cairn turned in the same instant, body curling around Briar like a shield. The force hit him full. Cairn screamed. It was not a wolf sound. It was a man sound, raw and ruined. Briar clutched him, trying to pull him back, but his weight sagged into her, heavy and suddenly wrong. His skin began to darken along the veins, black lines crawling like rot. Fenwick burst into the chamber, blood on his face, eyes wide. "Brother." Vesper appeared behind him, hair wild, gaze sharp with horror. "Get them out," she snapped. "Now." They carried Cairn through the collapsing keep as battle sounds faded into distant echoes. Briar stumbled beside them, hands on Cairn's shoulder, unwilling to let go. She did not remember leaving the keep. She remembered only Cairn breath growing shallow, his skin colder, his eyes half closing as if the world was pulling him under. They returned to Moonfen Hollow with the pack silent, moving like a funeral procession. Wolves who had snarled and cheered in victory now stared at the ground. Lark ran to the porch when they arrived and saw the stretcher. "Papa." Briar dropped to her knees beside the child and wrapped her arms around her. Lark body shook. She tried to climb onto the stretcher, and Marin gently held her back. Cairn eyes opened at the sound of her voice. "Lark," he whispered. Lark sobbed, "Do not leave." Cairn's mouth trembled as if he wanted to promise. He could not. In the shaman room, Vesper examined the blackened veins, the way Cairn healing had stopped, the way his wolf fought and still lost. Her face went hard. "This is a curse bound to this land," Vesper said. "It feeds on magic. The more the world holds him, the more it kills him." Fenwick's voice broke. "Fix it." Vesper shook her head once. "I cannot unmake a ward tied to a keep foundation and a bloodline. I can only change the ground under it." Briar swallowed. "What do you mean?" Vesper looked at Briar. "A world without magic, your world, the curse will starve there." Briar heart slammed. "Then we take him." Fenwick stared. "The Weedline does not run on command." Briar thought of the dwarf in the city, the way he had said dwarves say nothing for free. She felt a cold clarity. "Then we pay." Cairn stirred, eyelids fluttering. "No," he rasped. Briar leaned close. "Cairn, do not talk, save your breath." Cairn eyes found hers. "I will not abandon my pack," he whispered. "I will not run like a wounded animal." Briar voice shook. "You will die if you stay." Cairn gaze slid to the door where wolves waited, to Lark curled on a bench with her thumb in her mouth, face streaked with tears. "This is my land," he breathed. "My people." Fenwick stepped forward, jaw clenched so tight his words sounded like they were cut from stone. "Then I become Alpha." Silence crashed into the room. Cairn stared at his brother. Fenwick's voice shook. "I will hold them. I will guard Moonfen Hollow. I will do what you did. You taught me enough. Let me carry it." Cairn's eyes filled with something that looked like grief. "You would take my place." Fenwick swallowed. "I would take your burden. There is a difference." Briar watched the brothers and felt how deep their bond ran, deeper than pride, deeper than rivalry. It was blood and night, and the shared memory of losses that never stopped hurting. Cairn lifted a trembling hand. "Come here, Fenwick." Fenwick knelt beside the stretcher, and Cairn pressed his forehead to Fenwick's forehead, a brutal, tender gesture. Vesper stepped closer with a knife and a bowl, voice low, instructing them in an old vow. "Blood," Vesper murmured. "Breath. Name. The pack will accept if you do not flinch." Fenwick did not flinch. Cairn cut his own palm, then Fenwick's palm, and they pressed hands together. Blood smeared. Briar felt the air tighten like a knot. "I give you the right," Cairn whispered. "I give you the teeth. I give you the burden." Fenwick's eyes shone. "I take it. I will not fail." A low howl rose outside as the wolves sensed the shift. Not celebration, not mourning, acceptance. Briar stood in the doorway and watched as Fenwick rose, shoulders squared, gaze already changing into something heavier. He looked like a man stepping into a storm because there was no one else to hold the sky up. Juniper was brought out under guard that night, pale and shaking, belly swollen, eyes hollow. She stared at Cairn and tried to speak, but no words came. Vesper ordered her kept alive and watched, not out of mercy, but because answers still mattered. Exile would come later, when truth was no longer urgent. Briar left before dawn with Vesper blessing and Fenwick protection at her back, traveling to Brambleborough Depot with a small escort. The station crouched in its hollow like a memory. The dwarf watchman stepped out, copper rings glinting. "You again," he said, eyes sliding to the stretcher. "The Alpha rots." Briar stepped forward. "I need the weird line." The dwarf sniffed. "The weird line is not yours." Briar forced her voice steady. "Name your price." The dwarf's smile was thin. "Blood." Briar shook her head. "No." The dwarf shrugged. "Then he dies." Briar swallowed hard, then did the only thing she had left. She leaned in, voice low, fierce. "I bring knowledge from my world. Medicine. Machines. ways to hide, ways to build heat without hearthcraft, ways to see enemies at a distance. You dwarves hoard tracks because tracks are power. In my world, power moves through wires and air. Let me return, and I will open a river of it to you. The dwarf eyes narrowed. You promise much. Briar met his gaze. I am desperate. Desperate people do not bluff. Tell your elders that if they want what my world can give, they need me alive, and they need the alpha alive too, because I am not walking that train alone. The dwarf stared for a long moment. Then he spat to the side, annoyed and impressed. One run, he said, one, and you owe us. Briar exhaled, shaking. The Weedline Express arrived at dusk like a ghost answering a debt. Brass gleamed in lantern light. The whistle cut through the trees, and Briar felt her skin prickle as if the sound was touching something under it. They carried Cairn aboard on a stretcher. Lark clutched Briar coat and refused to let go. We are going home, Briar whispered to the child. Not your home, my home, but we go together. Lark sniffed. Will Papa be a wolf there? Cairn eyes opened, faint. Maybe not, he breathed. Lark face crumpled. I want him wolf. Briar kissed the top of her head. He will still be Papa. Fenwick stood on the platform, now wearing the weight of alpha without the crown of it. Wolves gathered behind him in silence. Cairn lifted his hand weakly. Fenwick. Fenwick stepped close to the carriage door, eyes bright. Go, brother, he said. Heal. And do not you dare die after you gave me this job. Cairn mouth twitched, the ghost of a smile. Keep them alive. Fenwick nodded once, always. The doors closed. The train shuddered. The platform slid away. Moonfen Hollow vanished into forest and mist. Briar sat beside Cairn's stretcher, fingers wrapped around his hand. At first his skin felt colder than it should. Then, as the train crossed the boundary, Briar felt warmth return. The black lines on his veins stopped crawling. His breath deepened. His face eased like a man climbing out of drowning water. Briar eyes filled. It is working. Cairn voice was a rasp. I can breathe. Lark crawled onto the stretcher, small body pressed against Cairn's side, careful of the bandages. She sighed like she had been holding her breath for a lifetime. Cairn turned his head, eyes on Briar. You did this. Briar shook her head, tears slipping free. I just refused to let you die. Cairn's gaze held hers, heavy and quiet. I tried to make you a thing, a tool, a shield. I treated you like a threat. Briar whispered, you treated me like property. Cairn's eyes flickered with shame. Yes. Briar swallowed, then say it. Say I am not. Cairn's breath shook. You are not, you are Briar. The way he said her name felt like a vow. Briar leaned forward before fear could stop her and pressed her mouth to his forehead. The touch was soft, and it made Cairn's eyes close like it hurt in a different way. Hours later, when Lark fell asleep curled between them, Cairn reached for Briar hand again. His fingers were warm now, steady. "In my world," he murmured, "I am Alpha. Here, I might become only a man." Briar whispered, "Only a man can still be strong." Cairn gaze slid to her mouth, heat flickering. "And if I become only a man, will you still look at me like you do now?" Briar felt her face warm. "How do I look at you?" "Like I am danger," Cairn whispered. "Like I am shelter. Like you hate me and want me in the same breath." Briar heart hammered. "I do not know what I want." Cairn voice went low. "I do. I want you beside me. Not because Lark calls you mama, because my wolf chose you, and because I am done pretending I did not." Briar swallowed. "You cannot choose for me." Cairn held her gaze. "Then choose." The train rocked. The compartment was warm. The world outside blurred into dark countryside and distant lights. Briar leaned closer, her breath catching, and kissed him again, slower this time, not stolen, not demanded, but offered. Cairn hand slid to her waist, gentle now, as if he was learning a different kind of strength. Briar let herself sink into the warmth of him, into the safety of being held without being trapped. Later, the blanket lay over them, and the air smelled like rain and skin and relief. Briar rested her head on Cairn's chest and listened to his heart, steady and real. "I am afraid," Cairn admitted. "So am I," Briar whispered, "but I am here." Lark stirred, half awake, and shoved her face between them, mumbling, "Both my people." Briar laughed softly through tears. "Yes," she whispered, "both your people." The train arrived, in the human world at dawn. The station looked ordinary. Concrete, fluorescent lights, signs that did not whisper magic. People moved with coffee cups and tired faces, unaware of the impossible arriving in a carriage that smelled faintly of pine. Cairn sat up on the stretcher and stared, breathing as if he had never tasted air like this. His skin looked normal. His eyes still held something wild, but the cursed darkness had faded. Briar squeezed his hand. "Welcome to my world." Cairn's voice was quiet. "It is loud." Briar smiled, tired and shaky. "You will get used to it." They stepped into the morning together. Briar had no home to return to, not the trailer, not the city streets that had tried to swallow her. She only had a backpack, a child who had chosen her, and a man who had crossed worlds to stay alive. In the weeks that followed, life became a slow building instead of a constant escaping. Briar found a small rental on the edge of a neighborhood where trees lined the streets, and the nights were quieter. Cairn learned how to live without the lodge, without a pack breathing at his back, without magic humming under every floorboard. He worked security at first, because his body still carried strength that did not fit a normal man, and because protecting was the one skill he trusted. Lark started school and came home with paper crowns and new words, sometimes laughing, sometimes angry, sometimes curling into Briar lap when the world felt too big. At night, she asked about Moonfen Hollow, about Fenwick, about the wolves who had watched her grow. Briar told her stories that did not hurt too much, stories that kept the pack alive inside her. Some nights, when the moon was full, Cairn stood in the backyard and stared at the sky like he was listening for a whistle only he could hear. Briar would step behind him and wrap her arms around his waist, and he would cover her hands with his, grounding himself in warmth and breath. One evening, months later, Briar stood in the bathroom and stared at the test in her shaking hands, heart pounding so hard she thought she might faint. When she stepped into the kitchen, Cairn looked up and went still. Briar's voice trembled. "Cairn, I think I am pregnant." For a heartbeat, Cairn looked terrified. Then he crossed the room in 2 steps and knelt in front of her as if the floor had turned sacred. He pressed his forehead to her stomach, eyes closed, breathing like a prayer. Briar touched his hair. "Are you okay?" Cairn's voice broke. "I do not deserve this, but I want it. I want you. I want this life." Briar swallowed, tears rising, then earn it every day. Cairn lifted his head, gaze fierce and soft at once. "I will." Outside, the moon rose over quiet roofs and streetlights, and the night looked ordinary to anyone who did not know what had crossed the tracks to get here. Briar stood in the doorway with Cairn behind her, and Lark pressed to her side. And for the first time in her life, the future did not feel like a threat. It felt like something they could build, one steady breath at a time. The journey on the train between worlds ended with finding a home. Were you moved by the story of Briar and little Lark? Write in the comments. Would you risk, like the heroine, stepping onto a train heading into the unknown to save a wounded creature? And a few words on the technical side. How is the narration speed? Are you able to follow the plot, or should I slow down during the descriptions of magic?